Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. Wednesday night, the 15th, right about 9 o'clock. Baseball game's getting out of hand, so we're going to go ahead and go live here. Big week to talk college football. We're going to spend a lot of time on that. We're going to start there, and then Trev is going to go into his dive on the NFL power rankings. And then obviously the Chiefs look really good. Tua backpedaling what he said. And then the Bears with 3 in a row with really an advantageous schedule coming ahead if they can get 2 or 3. I think I was listening to somebody talk that they have a real chance at 3 of the next 4, and then that would get them right into the playoff hunt, which is where you want to be. And we talked about that preseason. They need to be close to the playoffs, and if that happens, they'll be right there.
Yeah, for right now they are. We'll get into the NFL here in a little bit. I know you posted your college rankings. I know you're going to post my NFL ones here later after this or whenever. I'm going to be off the next 2 weeks. So, but yeah, I think obviously the biggest story is Penn State opening. I think we got to start there.
Yeah, it's not just that it is open. It's how fast it opened. If they beat Oregon in the overtime, they're the number 1 team in the country. 3 weeks later, he is fired, and they haven't won since. Now, and is this a financial move? Was this strategically placed, or was this just what the heck just happened? We can't do this, and he's just gone. I think the thing with Penn State that a lot of schools are – they're just not going to put up with it. Either James Franklin said something behind the scenes to the AD, to the team, or something that the wrong person didn't like, which I really don't think happened. I mean, I think it's really they were so downtrodden after that loss to Oregon that they were not ready to play against UCLA, and then they quit after that loss. I really believe that. I think Iowa's going to put a hurt into Penn State. I don't think they're going to get the dead count bounce that a lot of teams get. I think this team is done. I think it's over. And I think Penn State realized that and said, we're done with this.
Well, for Iowa, I wish James Franklin was staying one more week because we all do know about the new coach bump after one gets fired. NFL, college, it happens all the time. So I kind of wish he was hanging around one more week. That does scare me a little bit. There was rumors behind the scenes that there was an argument. I'm kind of with you. I don't think that may have been, a very small percentage of it, but I think the Adidas money that's coming in has a big factor. I'd believe that more than just about anything. And then, as you mentioned, if they would have won that game versus Oregon, this would all be different. But that was that was a tipping point. He's lost so many games against top 5, top 10 teams. You should have won that one at home, more experienced team. He didn't. And then the team just quit.
And the Adidas money is weird because they are not an Adidas school, correct? Are they going to be an Adidas school, or do you know that?
I believe starting next year, them in Tennessee, if Tennessee's not already. But I believe that money starts next year. I haven't had time to read all into it. I just saw some rumors. But when you bring in Adidas and the amount of money that they're talking, I'm sure some people at Adidas had a say in this, however much. But they definitely had a say at whatever factor it was.
Because, I mean, here's the thing. There's boosters that you can call around, and Penn State, I believe, has these boosters that you can call for $50 million. But it's not one phone call. You're not going to get one $50 million check. There's not very many people in the world that will write that check. However, a company like Adidas or Nike or others, Under Armour would be another one, those companies can write a check for $50 million. So that's the best gig in the world is a fired football coach. $15 a day. Now, the thing about his that is different than Jimbo Fisher's, which I do like, is he is required to try to get another job. And if he takes another job, that offsets it. He's paid like $8 or $9 million a year. If he takes a job for $5 million, Penn State's only on the hook for the difference, so $3-4 million. So that is good for Penn State, not just having to pay $50 million total. But if I'm James Franklin, depending on how bad you want to coach, you go interview for a job. But I don't know if I really want this one. This might not be the right fit this year. Not a bad job. Go get paid $1 million to do TV and take $7 million from Penn State.
Yeah, that's the easiest job search in America right now for him, because he can do the bare minimum. Speaking of the Penn State job, I read this a little bit before we got on, and I didn't have time to fact check all these, but I would assume it's pretty close to true. I'm going to give you 5 numbers here. Penn State's number 2 in estimated alumni base of all the colleges. They're number 7 on social media following. Their athletic department revenue is number 9. Their program valuation is 11, and their TV viewership numbers rank in right around 12. So jobs like this don't come open very often. That's why you're hearing every name possible being considered for this job.
Yeah, this is a job you can win a national title next year. They were supposed to win a national title this year. This is, I believe, a top 5, at worst, a top 10 job in the country. At absolute worst. I think it's a top 5 job. You are the only program in the state, really. I mean, I know there's Pitt, but Penn State is the real deal. You've been there. I've not been there. The fan support in that stadium on game day when it's white out and at night, it rivals any stadium in the country. Death Valley in Clemson, Death Valley at LSU, Neyland Stadium. It is right there. It's over 100,000 people, and it's loud. I don't disagree it's those stats that you put out there. I cannot confirm them. I bet they're really close if they're not 100% correct. That is what they live for at Penn State. And people forget this. You look at the NFL right now, some of the best players in the NFL right now played at Penn State recently. Saquon Barkley, Micah Parsons. And then you go back in the history of football. I mean, Joe Paterno had great teams, had great players. It's linebacker U. I mean, it's not – this is a program that's been as good as you can be for 50 years with a little blip right after the Sandusky-Paterno thing. But I think Bill O'Brien doesn't get enough credit for at least riding the ship for a couple of years. And then he turned it over to James Franklin. And James Franklin has won. He just hasn't won to the level that they expect. Yes, it is a job that they will pay, and they will call every name in the book. Now, with the change in landscape and the change in everything, people leaving to go to that job, I do think changes in 2025-6 than it would have been in 2021. 2021, almost everybody that is on that list, Kirk Cignetti at Indiana, Matt Rule at Nebraska, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, they probably jump at that job if it's offered. But I don't know if they do today because Kirk Cignetti at Indiana has Indiana in position to win a national title this year. And you know who their number 1 booster is at Indiana?
Tell me.
Mark Cuban. Essentially unlimited funds. Matt Rule's at Nebraska. Now, he makes the most sense. He played for Joe Paterno. He's from Pennsylvania, played and coached at Penn State. Makes sense. Nebraska doesn't take a backseat to anybody. You know who their number 1 booster is?
Yeah, I do. Now I'm having I know who it is. Say it. Yeah.
Yeah, Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett, yeah.
Like the second richest guy in the world.
Yep.
So those teams have some of the richest people in the world behind them. You know, Ole Miss, that's a job that is a little bit intriguing. I think, and Lane Kiffin is just squirrely enough, and just he would change. Can you imagine Lane Kiffin in the Big Ten? I think it would be awesome.
He would definitely be a character that he'd bring some energy to the Big Ten. All the names you mentioned, all the things that we talked about, the numbers I threw out there, the stadium's in place. Franklin proved that you can get the top recruits to come there, so that's not a problem. But first and foremost, their first call has to be, and they have to call 5 times, 10 times, I don't care who it is, offer Nick Saban 4 years, $80 million. Because
I heard Urban Meyer too. I think you have to call him too.
You have to call Urban. I think Urban would probably turn it down just because he wanted Ohio State. That would be a bad look. But you have to call him. But Penn State. I've read some Penn State fans don't like the idea of Saban only coming for 4 or 5 years. You're a fool if you wouldn't take him for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. He'd get you to the playoffs every year because he knows you only have to finish top 3 in the Big Ten. And other years, the 4th or 5th team might get in. He can finish top 3 every year at Penn State in the Big Ten. Well, let's say he comes for 5 years. You give him $80 to $100 million. He wins a handful of playoff games. You get 1 national title. If you're a Penn State fan, you don't take that. You're a fool, in my opinion.
I agree. And then, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I think you call Saban first, but number 2 call has to be Urban Meyer. Has to be. Those 2 guys have been the 2 best coaches, and that's who you swing at. I 100% agree with you, Trev.
Yeah, those are the first 2 calls, and then you get into Marcus Freeman, Matt Rule, Matt Campbell, Lane Kiffin, some of the other names that we've heard out there, of course. But it's an attractive job, and jobs like these don't come open very often. So if you're Matt Campbell, for example, if you pass this up, are you going to get this chance again, or will you have to wait for 5 or 10 years for another job like this to open up?
Yeah, this is a job that worries me. I don't know if he can get this one because they're going to go for the splash hire. If Matt Campbell takes this job, he is about 5th or 6th. That means people have turned it down. The interesting part to this is the Florida job, and I don't know if you've been reading. I mean, it's coming out that he's getting fired after this game this week. I'm a little surprised he hasn't been fired yet, especially – I think they wanted to be first in the real big time jobs, but Penn State switched so fast, and they
beat Texas, so that bottom a couple weeks,
right? And now there's an argument: what's a better job, Florida or Penn State? I think that is an argument. Florida, just a recruiting hotbed. They do have recent national championships. They are in the SEC, right in the middle of it. Me personally, I think I'd rather go to Penn State because the thing with the SEC is it is so deep. The Big Ten is unbelievably good at the top, but they don't have 8 or 10 teams that are in the top 15. Like the SEC at certain times can and will.
Yeah, both of those are going to be really good jobs coming up, and Florida State potentially too now with their recent downfall. So there's going to be 3 big ones open. Obviously, Penn State's the biggest. Any under the radar names you've heard of out there? I've read a handful, but I didn't know if you had any listed.
The one that I heard that's interesting is Ohio State's Brian Hartline. Mm-hmm. Now, whether he's ready for a big time job like that is a whole different story. But kind of look at him a little bit like Dan Lanning or Kirby Smart. Could have had head jobs already. Are they ready to take a big job? Smart waited for Georgia, one of the biggest jobs in the country. Dan Lanning waited for Oregon, one of the biggest jobs in the country. Penn State would be right on that same category. And then honestly, as this week has gone on, I'm less worried about Matt Campbell going to Penn State. A little bit more worried about this one. If Matt Rule would get that job, the Nebraska job. Worried about that one a little bit. Troy Dannon, the AD, is from Iowa. Troy Dannon was the AD at Washington when Kalen DeBoer left to go to Alabama. And I know he called Matt Campbell. And I think Matt Campbell at least listened to the conversation. I mean, I don't think it went super far, but he answered the phone and took the call. Nebraska is not way out west. Lincoln is very much like Ames, if that's what he likes for his family. And then it's the Big Ten. And as we just stated, Warren Buffett is your number 1 supporter financially. That doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah, there's a domino effect if Rule does leave Nebraska. That's exactly. And then Nebraska's open. Campbell would have to be high on their list, just given the location. that would all make sense. Marcus Freeman's name has come up a lot today that Penn State's going to make him a big offer. Well, if he leaves, the Notre Dame job comes open, and then that goes back to Urban Meyer. Would they want him? I'm sure they'd want him, but given some of his past incidents, would they take him?
Right.
But yeah, there's going to be a domino effect depending who takes this job, who leaves what school. I was just looking up. I didn't even know the last time he coached college. I think it's been since 92. So that might be a little bit weird, but he was born in Pittsburgh as Mike McCarthy. I know we talked about him for the Giants job if that comes open, but I was trying to think of an NFL guy. Obviously, there's going to be some coordinators that'll get mentioned, but I'm sure they're going to want to get a big name in there. I don't know if they want to go the underrated name route just because of the pushback from the fans, even though it may be the right move, though.
Yeah, and that's where, I think Matt Campbell would be a great fit at Penn State. He would not be the fan favorite. He wouldn't win the press conference, but give him those resources in every facet of everything. And you just let him go to work, and you can step into every living room in the country. I'd like to see how it works. Now, I don't really want him to leave because Iowa State's as good as they've been. Now, we're going to have a conversation here pretty soon that what's wrong with the Cyclones, and I think there's more than one thing wrong with the Cyclones right now. But that job scares me, but not as much as it did Sunday night.
Yeah,
I think the trickle effect might actually worry me more. Because Indiana would be another job if some reason they could get Cignetti to go to Penn State. The Indiana job would worry me a little bit more because again, they've got the money closer to home. He's from Ohio. That's a Big Ten job, proven that you can win. But yet, Indiana's not going to be able to make those phone calls to the top people. So Matt Campbell, I think, would be very, very high on their list.
So if Matt Campbell leaves for any job, and assuming he takes most or all of the staff with him, give me a name or two out there that isn't at Iowa State right now to replace Matt Campbell that you'd like.
That isn't. I think if he would leave this year, I think it would be the offensive coordinator, Taylor Bowser. He's a young guy, second or third year. I do think it would be him. Two names outside, Nate Scheelhaus, who went to the NFL, was the coordinator a couple of years ago, young guy as well, but then did leave to go to the NFL out there with McVay at the Rams. I think he's passing game coordinator or whatever. I think it could be him. I don't know how this would go now, but Chris Ash, who helped start my career, helped me get my job in Ottumwa and everything. He's from Ottumwa, was at Iowa State. He's a D coordinator at Notre Dame right now. He's been the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, been the defensive coordinator at Ohio State when they won national championships, been the defensive coordinator at Texas, and was a head coach at Rutgers for a few years. So he has the experience. Now, I'm going to say it wasn't a great experience at Rutgers, but he does have head coaching experience from Iowa, been at Iowa State under McCarney and under Paul Rhodes. And then he left to go with Bielema up to Wisconsin. And then he might actually even went to Arkansas with him. I can't remember if he went to Arkansas with him or after Wisconsin went to Ohio State. I can't remember. But been at big-time programs, defense coordinator for Notre Dame, defense coordinator for Ohio State when they won it all. So he knows how to run football programs as well. Those would be a couple names. The D coordinator, if Haycock would want I really think if Haycock would want the job, you probably should actually give it to him. I just don't think he wants that job. Much like Phil Parker at Iowa, when Kirk Ferentz retires, that should be the first person that gets the job if he wants it. But I don't think he wants it. I think it'll be Seth Wallace, but that's just me.
Okay, and then last question, at least for me, before we move on to Iowa and Iowa State, where's James Franklin going to end up if he did take it? Let's say he takes a coaching job, he doesn't go into TV. Any ideas where he might end up?
Again, I think it's a trickle-down effect. I think it definitely could be Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin would go to Florida. Now, I don't know if Lane Kiffin will go to Florida or go to LSU. That's kind of the one that intrigues me because I think LSU could make a change, or I could see Brian Kelly trying to jump somewhere. maybe he could go to Florida and then Lane Kiffin goes to LSU. I could see that going on. He's just one of those that kind of jumps really before they fire him. Now they're still really good. It's just they're kind of in the same boat as Penn State. They just aren't competing for a national championship with him.
I was thinking Auburn for James Franklin if they decide to make a change.
Yep. Yeah, and I
think that'd be a small enough. Auburn's still a really good program, but they're not one of the top ones. So I think the fans, you'd get good. You get some mixed opinions, of course, but you get enough buy-in from the fans on a James Franklin hire at Auburn, I think.
Do you think would Auburn make a run at Lane Kiffin? See, I think all the SEC schools will make a run at Lane Kiffin.
Yeah,
is that a better job than Ole Miss?
Auburn?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
So and again, I might if Meyer and Saban say no, I might go after Lane just to change it up. And I don't know. I think he's really good. He hasn't been able to win the big one either. I mean, I understand that, but he's got Ole Miss right where Hugh Freeze had him, I guess,
Yeah, I don't know how much better you can get Ole Miss. I don't know what their donors look like. I don't think they're in the top 20 or 30. No. I'm just guessing. I mean, I don't have to read anything about that. So if Lane wanted to, we talked about it before, if he feels like he's maxed out there, which this year may be his max out year, Penn State would be one of those schools where he could potentially get to the next level.
Yeah, I think he intrigues me. I mean, obviously, Iowa State can't get him, but he's one that intrigues me.
He'd be fun for sure. He's a character, so yeah, he'd be a fun one to add to the Big Ten.
You imagine him and Ryan Day going after each other.
Well, Lane had some comments about Kirby Smart, which I'm sure you saw too. Did ask him about the interview or whatever. Yeah, that was funny. So he's not scared to give some sound bites out there. He'd be good though for entertainment factor.
Okay, let's move on to Iowa and Iowa State. Let's go Iowa first because this is going to be a short conversation. The conversation with that game has zero to do with Iowa. The only question mark and an interesting factor is how hurt and how healthy, however you want to look at it, Gronowski is. He's not 100% healthy, but he's better than anybody else they have, so they have to play him as long as he can. That's what I saw out of the Hawkeyes. But the real thing is, how bad is Wisconsin? Wisconsin is really, really bad. And this is the difference in money. How James Franklin is fired, but Luke Fickell is not fired, is beyond me.
Yeah, but Wisconsin's at their lowest point that I can remember in my lifetime. And the fact that they had a player get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty versus Iowa. I mean, Kirk Ferentz and Iowa don't really mess with anyone. They're a program that keeps their head down and just plays football. So that player, I can't think of his name now, just a stupid move, and it's just an all-around bad look. I remember, when he got hired at Wisconsin, you and I both thought it was a good fit.
Yeah.
Looking back, I thought it was going to be a good fit for him.
I did too. He was the guy. He just went to the playoff with Cincinnati. He's a Midwest guy. Probably should have been the Ohio State coach, but they were able to convince Urban Meyer to come, so I don't blame him. But if Urban Meyer doesn't come, it's probably Fickell. And then who knows what happens,
Yeah, it's I don't know who the next Wisconsin's coach is going to be, but he's probably gone after the year. Yeah, as far as Iowa goes, it was a get-right game. It was nice. Controlled it basically from the very beginning. Gronowski, I thought, looked pretty good given that he's banged up, so I was happy with that. You got them at their lowest point. Now you got Penn State. Iowa's a favorite. You got to take advantage. Again, you hope the new coach bump isn't going to come into play. Right. So fingers crossed on that. But, if they can beat Penn State now, and I think they got Minnesota the week after, all of a sudden this season gets a lot more interesting. But again, it's still going to be a tough game because Penn State's got a lot of talented players on the roster still. It's not, Drew Aller's out, but it's not like all these players have just left. They're still on the team. So there's a lot of first and second round draft picks on Penn State. So Iowa's going to have to play a clean game, field position. It'll probably be a typical Iowa Penn State game that comes down to the end, unless Penn State's really just quit on all the coaches, I guess. Yep. But I would expect it to be a close game still. But if Iowa can get this one, it's not Iowa's fault that James Franklin's fired. Yep. They're just the team that's next. So if Iowa can get this one, then get Minnesota. All of a sudden, it's looking like potentially a really promising season.
Yeah, their fortunes have changed, and they are getting better. That's a Kirk Ferentz, obviously the Indiana close loss looks better and better. I would have bet a lot of money that Indiana did not go into Oregon and win, and they did. And they looked good doing it. It wasn't a fluke. Indiana's really good. Indiana can win the national championship. I believe that. Now, the problem is the program a couple hundred miles to the east of them might actually be the best program. That's their only problem.
Yeah. No, I was really surprised that Indiana went into Oregon. I thought they might be able to keep it. My thinking was keep it within a 7 to 10 points, mid-fourth, toward the end of the game. If Oregon gets a late score, makes it look worse, whatever, but just keep it close. And they did more than that. So, yeah, it's looking like an Ohio State, Indiana Big Ten championship. I'll be interested to see how Indiana fares in that one. But Ohio State does look like, they have to be the favorites to repeat, which they are, and they should be. Indiana's the real deal. It's just I was texting the guys on Saturday. I said it's just so weird to see Indiana being great, being this good. It's just when I was younger, well, both of our lifetimes, Indiana's been a bottom program in football. So it's just weird to see that logo at the top.
Yeah, and they should be there. They deserve to be there. But yeah, and then obviously the Iowa State loss was very close, and Iowa State was much healthier and a much better team in week 2 than they are right now. That win doesn't look that loss looks worse now than it did 2 weeks ago, but still at the time Iowa State was trending in the right direction. Iowa State was 2-0, already playing their third game. Only Iowa second, so I had an extra week kind of ironing some things out. But yeah, Iowa, 9-3 outside. I mean, I still don't see them beating Oregon, but I could see them beating everybody else. It might come down to that Iowa-Nebraska game, Black Friday, for that last Big Ten spot in the playoff. I don't think either one of those teams are going to get to the Big Ten championship, but if you go 9-3, depending on how everything else shakes out, and you end up being fourth in the league, you have a chance. I mean, it's kind of like Ole Miss last year in South Carolina. They were close. They didn't quite get there, but when you're 9-3 in the Big Ten and SEC, one year you'll get in, the next year you might not. That's just kind of how everything shakes out.
Yeah, if things shake up like that, the fourth Big Ten team, it's going to be close whether they get in or not, because I think we all feel the big three are getting in: Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. Yep. And then is it Nebraska, USC, Illinois, maybe in Iowa if things go right for Iowa. But, that's a good point. But still got to take care of business Saturday. Oregon's going to be a tough one at Kinnick. Oregon did get some good practice going out to Penn State earlier in the year with long travel in a tough environment. So they're going to know how to handle that. I'll be interested to see how Iowa plays in that one, if they can win their next games before it.
Does Iowa go to USC this year? Is that another one of theirs? Yeah, so that'll be really tough because Kirk Ferentz hates going west. Super unsuccessful going west, and then USC looks pretty good. It'll be interesting to see how USC Notre Dame game this week goes, because I don't know who's going to win that game.
I think I like Notre Dame, but going back to Lincoln Riley a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, him complaining about coming east. Well, look at all the schools that are going out west. I know Indiana won, but there's still plenty of schools that it works both ways. For the travel for the Big Ten schools. So Michigan lost, Iowa doesn't do good out west. Other schools, Ohio State lost at Oregon last year. To me, it works both ways. So it's tough for all these schools, whether you're going east or west. It evens itself out, in my opinion. No excuses as far as that goes.
All right, let's go to Iowa State. I'm going to go a couple-minute rant here. Now, I'm going to preface this where Iowa State is better today than they've been ever really in my lifetime. And that's what makes this a little bit frustrating, is the expectations have been raised. Beating teams that you're better than should be the expectation now. In the last 2 weeks now, I believe Cincinnati might be better than Iowa State or just as good. But Colorado is not. Colorado is not as good a football team as Iowa State. But for whatever reason, injuries, play call, whatever, the offense just is not clicking. And Rocco Beck is not as good today as he was 3 weeks ago. Now, I don't know if that hit that he took at Cincinnati is still ringing a bell with him. And if that's the case, then you need to sit him. Now, that's not good for Iowa State, but if he is not able to produce the way he should and can, you need to sit him. If he's healthy, for whatever reason right now, he's not as good as he was 3 weeks into the season. Now, the receivers need to be better. And then here's the one thing that I am really frustrated about. Gabe Burkle, for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year, was the best player on the field. He is nowhere to be seen now. He dropped a big pass this last weekend. I understand that. But he is nowhere to be seen. So I don't know if that is other teams are taking him away. And if they are, then you got to go to the next guy. But Gabe Burkle needs to be playing and needs the ball thrown to him and produce like he did the first few weeks of the season. Ben Bramer needs to do better. And then the receivers need to catch the football. But then on defense, there's 2 positions. The D-backs are hurt, but they're not doing that bad. But the linebackers and the defensive line are regressing. The defensive line gets 0 pass rush. 0. Colorado had given up the most sacks in the league. Iowa State hardly even got pressure on that quarterback, let alone a sack. The only time Iowa State's ever got pressure this entire season was the last series against the Hawkeyes. They got 2 of their 6 sacks on the season in that series. So I don't know if it's players or coaching or whatever, but it's not good. The defensive line has to be better. Our defensive ends are god-awful. Or they're not coached, one or the other. You have to get a pass rush. And if you have to bring linebackers, you got to do it. And then if the linebackers come, they got to come. And our linebackers are just getting their butts ran over too. That Cincinnati game, Carson Willich got ran over twice. That's not acceptable. Absolutely not. So the front 7 has to be better. So I think right now, I don't know what's going on in the building, but the same thing happened in 2021 compared to 2020. You make the Big 12 title game. The next year you have high expectations and you fall flat on your face. They went 7-6 and lost by a lot to Clemson in the Camping World Bowl or whatever bowl. It's trending that direction again. So this bye week, I don't know what's going on, but they need to figure it out and figure it out now. And if some of your best players are not living up to the standards, you need to sit their ass and get onto other people. And Matt Campbell, you need to hold every one of your coaches accountable and get their ass coaching, because this team is not the same as it was in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. He talks about attention to detail and doing the little things right. And he said this after the Colorado game, that it's on me. It's on me. I'm the head coach. I'm responsible for it all. They're having penalties. It's not good. And everybody's going to talk about that, picked up pass interference. It was a bad call. Absolutely. I don't think it's right. But you are too talented of a football team. I'm not going to say you're too good of a football team, because right now they're not. But you're too talented of a football team against Colorado to have one play like that change it. We keep going for it on 4th and 1, and we've gotten stopped 5 times in the last 2 weeks, and we keep running the same play. Our offensive line isn't good enough to get a yard when it's 4th and 1 with the quarterback sneak. Please stop doing it. Do something different. Am I wrong there, Trev?
Well, I haven't watched all the snaps the past 2 weeks, but yeah, a quarterback sneak. I get frustrated that with college or NFL just generally. If you can't,
you should be able to get it.
You should be able to. So I get frustrated with that with teams, a 4th and short or a 4th and 1. if they can't convert a quarterback sneak, or that a lot of times they run plays out of shotgun, hand it off, the back doesn't even get the line of scrimmage. It's just, I'm old school, I guess, in that way. You should be able to line up, power formation, and run a quarterback sneak.
And I don't like pointing the individual guys out, but our center, he's done pretty good this year. But he was our starting center 3 years ago. But then 2 years ago, he got beat out. And now he's back being our starter. So he's obviously not that good. And he must be getting his butt kicked on these quarterback sneaks because we're not getting anything.
Yeah, it's frustrating for Iowa State to lose 2 in a row. That, as you mentioned, the good news is you got a bye week. Now, if you're an Iowa State fan, what I'd be hoping for, I hope that BYU wins the Holy War this weekend, because then they're going to be really emotional, coming off a big win, and maybe you can take advantage of that at Jack Trice.
Well, it's twofold now. And then here's another thing, Trev. I almost forgot this. I just was looking at my notes here. In the last 4 years, Iowa State, after their first loss, the next game they were favored in, have lost. Like last year, they lost that game to Texas Tech on the last second play, went down to Kansas and got their butts whooped. Then they ran off 3 or 4 in a row to get to the Big 12 title game. Year before, lose 2 in a row. That's a trend. So Matt Campbell needs to do a better job of getting his guys ready to go after a loss. Now, here's the downside of all this. They are 5-2. And in the history of my life, I think they've been 5-2 like 6 times, maybe not even that many. So this is the best era of Iowa State football, and it's getting better and better every year, but it's frustrating. Yes, you want BYU to win the Holy War for 2 reasons. One, it gives Utah a second loss, which helps you. You don't play Utah this year. So, obviously you already have 2 losses in the conference. You play BYU, you play Arizona State. So you can hopefully BYU loses sometime besides you. So there's 2 losses. You have them in a head-to-head. Utah's got 2 losses. You don't have them. So, maybe, but Arizona State, maybe a second loss. You just want all these teams. You want Texas Tech to go undefeated and beat everybody really bad. And obviously, if you win out, you're going to have TCU. You got Kansas. So you're going to get some teams below you. And then obviously you need a little help. But control what you can control and then cheer for Texas Tech, which Texas Tech, again, looks, as we said last week, they are A. Everybody else is B or lower. There's no one else even A- or B+. They are a full letter grade, at least above everybody else.
Yeah, if you look at BYU's schedule, let's say they beat Utah and then they lose at Iowa State. They've still got to go to Texas Tech and to Cincinnati. So there's a world where if Iowa State can beat them, they could definitely drop 2 more games before the end of the season. Yeah,
so then they'd be behind them. And so you're worried about Cincinnati because they're still undefeated in the conference and obviously have the head-to-head against you. But don't let any of these other teams in. But and then just, we were talking about, can Iowa get in at 9-3? On the vice versa side, if you want any chance of a Big 12 team getting 2, you need Texas Tech to be undefeated and ranked about number 2 in the country. And then whoever they play, it really doesn't matter. Obviously, you'd want the next ranked higher team that hopefully is around number 10. But who knows that? Let's just say it is BYU. They make a run. They've got 1 loss. BYU beats them on a last-second field goal. Then you really do have an argument where Texas Tech should get in as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's your only hope, and then obviously that would kick a team like Iowa or South Carolina or Ole Miss or whoever. Not South Carolina this year, but Ole Miss, LSU, one of those teams that would be fighting for, 3rd, 4th in the SEC, and then a Nebraska, Iowa, USC, 3rd, 4th, in the Big Ten.
Yeah, you also got to hope for another Notre Dame loss, so that way they're officially out.
You want USC to win this week,
and then you need to get Georgia Tech to get another loss. That way, the only ACC team that gets in would be Miami, hopefully, and then that potentially opens up another spot for the Big 12.
Yep. Yeah. So, but ultimately, you just control what you control. But if things don't go forward, Iowa State's definitely looking at their next two games are BYU and Arizona State, both ranked teams, both really good teams. I would assume Sam Leavitt will be healthy in a couple of weeks and be back for the Iowa State game. BYU is really, really good. People forget last year they were in that tiebreaker with Iowa State to get into the Big 12 championship game, and they might actually ended up being the next team out of the playoff of the rankings. They actually might have been 13 because they didn't have that extra loss like Iowa State did.
Yeah, for Iowa State, it's two tough games coming up, but at least they're both at home. You get the bye week, get some players healthy. If you can win those two,
then you're right back in it. I mean,
then you're right back in it. But the first and foremost, you look at all the other team schedules. You still got to take care of business. You got to win BYU, and then hopefully turn that into 2 wins in a row against Arizona State.
And then you go to TCU, which is not an easy game either.
No, but if you can get that, we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I guess, in the Big 12. There's going to be some fluctuation because other teams are playing other opponents. So things could look a lot more positive in a few weeks, though.
Yeah, it's just super frustrating right now, and every single person in that facility needs to be looking inward and doing everything they can to get better. And with Rocco Beck, I don't know if it's his footwork or just what he's seeing, or the routes aren't being run as crisp. I mean, it's probably a little bit. Again, as we always say, it's probably a little bit of everything. Is he 100% healthy? No. Well, no one is this time of year. But is he having just a little bit of effects from hits, not just the head hits? It's, just his body in general and everything too.
Yeah, hopefully he can get healthy. And, that's, the bye weeks are good for that. Iowa was fortunate with theirs going up to Wisconsin. They were down on their luck. BYU is, whether they win or lose, is not going to be that type of opponent. But 2 games in a row, Jack Trice. Hopefully, for your sake, you can rest easy this Saturday and just not worry about Iowa State for a week.
Well, I won't worry about Iowa State, but there's a lot of good games. There's a lot of good games this week that I'll be watching, and the weather's been really good here. I don't know. I might try to go play some golf or something too. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you got to get golfing before here pretty soon. That's it's going to be over with. So you got to get as many rounds in now as you can.
All right, let's move on to the NFL. Kind of let you take over here. I will get a graphic out with your all 32 teams power rankings that you sent me, but kind of let you first kind of hit your topics, and then we'll finish with your power rankings there.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at the list. I mean, we'll start with the Chiefs. Obviously, they look like they're back. Worthy didn't have statistically a big game, but him being on the field, all the speed that they have, it's just another threat, and it opens up things for all the other players. They're going to get Rashee Rice back. And then, of course, at the end of the game, he had a fight. Dan Campbell addressed it. Dan Campbell did the right thing. He's like, that can't happen. Now, not secretly, but deep down, I'm happy to see Juju get whooped on like that. He's a little punk. I'm old school like that. He's this new TikTok generation that I can't stand. So I was happy to see him get thrown around a little bit. Now you're seeing other players around the league that are defending Brian Branch. Now there's a fine line where you can't do it, but there's a lot of players that are happy that he did.
Yeah, they're all understanding that yes, he needs to be suspended and fined, whatever he's all getting, which I think he has been suspended for a game and it was upheld and everything. But there's a lot I have read where there's several players that aren't really sad that he did it.
Yeah, and I know everybody gets frustrated with the Chiefs. I'm not a fan of them, or like a lifelong fan, but I do love Breed and Mahomes. I like how they make everybody mad. But I do think Mahomes is full of crap though after the game, saying we played between the whistle or between the lines. It's like, no, you guys don't. But as a quarterback like that, you have to be kind of arrogant. That all the great ones are. So whatever motivation you need, all the great ones use it. But I'm like, okay, Patrick, we all know differently. We've all seen differently. The big thing for the Lions, though, is you haven't seen this out of them under the Dan Campbell era. So, this, to me, the Lions are at a breaking point. They've got Tampa and then a bye week, and we'll talk about them in the power rankings. But the Lions are at a crossroads here, and you hope – and then Kirby Joseph, the other all-pro safety, I think after the game, until the next day after, he sent out 24 tweets of memes making fun of the Chiefs and the officials. And that's just stuff you don't see the Lions do. So I think Dan Campbell's going to get that corrected. Again, that's arguably the best safety tandem in the NFL that the Lions have. It's a little bit it's weird to see them do that in a big situation or after a big game. So I would expect Dan Campbell and that crew to address it, put it behind them. But it's we haven't seen this out of the really good Lions teams yet, so it's a little bit concerning.
Yep, and then kind of next on your list, Steelers and Aaron Rodgers just win. Mike Tomlin just wins. That I'll be honest, and he's not going there, but that was a name I saw on the list was Mike Tomlin to Penn State. Like, no, but
yeah, he's not going there. And speaking of the Steelers, they're dead last in yards on offense. That's a concern. They're middle of the pack in points. Now, part of that's defense getting some turnovers, but Aaron Rodgers is playing smart. He just knows don't turn the ball over.
He's dumping it down to 3 yards every time. They have the lowest yards per pass in the league, like 3.5 yards. It's just check down.
Yeah, just be safe with the football. And, Mike Tomlin had the soundbite this year that he was mad at the Browns for trading Flacco to the Bengals. And the reason being is Flacco's got an 11-11 record versus Tomlin and the Steelers. So Flacco's he's just good enough that with Chase and T. Higgins, I think the Steelers have the 30th ranked passing defense, maybe. Their defense gets a lot of turnovers, but their secondary has some weaknesses. So there's a reason that Mike Tomlin wasn't happy about that trade going place, because he would have much rather played Jake Browning versus the Bengals than tomorrow night playing Joe Flacco. That's causing him to lose a little bit of sleep. There's a reason that Tomlin came out in that press conference and was critical of the Browns, and some other coaches have been too, that you don't trade quarterbacks within division during the season. Even though if I'm the Browns, I don't care. Get a 5th-round pick for him. He's not going to be here next year. I would have done the same thing. But
right.
There's a reason that Tomlin's nervous. I think last I saw, Pittsburgh was maybe a 5.5-point favorite. I would take the Bengals to cover that spread if I was to bet on it. I'd probably take Pittsburgh to win. But we've seen these Thursday night games, short weeks, crazy things happen. And again, the Bengals have enough good players on offense where if Joe Flacco has a vintage game, which he's probably got 1 or 2 left in his career, he can pull the upset tomorrow night.
Yeah, they didn't look too bad last week for him just getting there. And it was weird. I don't know if you saw the picture of him getting on a commercial flight to Cincinnati, which is weird. And then I read where Cincinnati studied all the Cleveland stuff and compared the routes and all the plays and switched it, just said, hey, we call it this. It's the play, but we call it this. So same plays, just a new name. So he just had to learn a new name instead of learning new plays as well.
Yeah, it was a short week for him. He's a veteran. Keep it simple for a week. Everybody knows it's tough to fit a lot in a shortened week even. So now that he's had a little bit of time, you can start to expand on the playbook and the verbiage more particularly than the playbook per se. So it's going to be an interesting game tomorrow night, but the Steelers are quietly winning that division. Now, here's the thing, though. If the Bengals do beat the Steelers, that division's a little bit closer now between those two teams. Everybody's talking about the Ravens getting Lamar back. Well, if the Bengals win, I don't think they're going to go on a run, but it's the NFL. It is possible. I mean, the margins are small in the NFL.
Yeah, and then you get Burrow back for the last 6 games or whatever, and who knows?
Who knows? But you'd have that game right there against them. So, yeah, the Steelers and Rodgers are quietly winning. They look like they're going to be a playoff team right now. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. But they've got to get a little bit more explosive on offense. Their running game has been a struggle probably the past 5 or 6 years in Pittsburgh for whatever reason. But now that Rodgers has had a handful of games under him, you wonder if the offense is going to start to put up some more yards, some more points, and become maybe a little bit more explosive. They are in the market for a receiver too. The rumors coming out, Chris Olave potentially down in New Orleans. People talked about Waddle, but he just got a contract not too long ago. I don't know if the Dolphins would dump him yet. There's going to be Jacoby Myers out of Vegas, the Raiders. I don't think he's even going to play this week. There's some people wondering if they're intentionally sitting him just to avoid any type of injury so they can move off him in a trade.
And I did just read, you've talked about this really since before the season started. Breece Hall right at the top of the list to be traded. And it had 5 teams that should be interested in him. And number 1 was the Chiefs, which you nailed that before the season started. Number 2 are the Chargers. They've had injuries at running back, so they need a running back. I think number 3 was Pittsburgh. Their running game is just bad. And then Houston, and I can't remember who the 5th one was. But like Houston, there was another one that was the team. Arizona. Like Houston and Arizona aren't real good teams, but they need running backs, and you just don't know. But like, the Chiefs, Steelers, and Chargers are all in the playoff mix, division mix. That would be very intriguing. Brees Hall is from Wichita, Kansas, so obviously going to Kansas City would be going home, essentially, for him. I assume he grew up a Chiefs fan. It'd be a Chiefs or a Cowboys fan if you're in that part of the country, I would think. I mean, maybe a Broncos fan, but I would guess it's a Cowboys or Chiefs fan growing up in Wichita.
Yeah, I'd like to see him on the Chiefs. I think that'd make their offense even more dynamic, especially if getting Rice back. The Chargers make a little bit of sense. The Texans I'd be a little surprised with Woody, Marks, and Chubb. Joe Mixon's got I've got him on fantasy in one of my teams. There's still a non-injury related thing going off Joe Mixon. He's had some stuff in the past, so I don't know what's going on with him. But the Chiefs make some sense. The Steelers, even if they trade for Brees Hall, it's not a Brees Hall problem. It's a Steelers problem that they've had for a lot of years now with the offensive line. And so he'd probably be a little bit of an upgrade, but I'd like to see him somewhere. I'd like to see him with the Chiefs, I guess. I think it'd make for a fun offense there.
The NFL better than I do. What type of compensation would you get for a Brees Hall?
Well, if you trade for him, you're going to have to give him a deal, or he's going to probably walk.
Right.
So, you don't want to give up a first, second, or third, probably. Could you get him for a 4th? If you're desperate, maybe you would do something like that. But I can't see the Chiefs giving away a first or a second. Maybe they'd give away a 3rd if they got a pick back. Brees Hall in a 5th or something for a 3rd, because that 3rd's probably going to be obviously the Chiefs picking. It looks like they're going to be picking, at the end of each round, like always. So it depends. I would say something like that. I don't think many teams are going to want to give up a 2nd or even a 3rd for him.
No, I agree. And you're 100% right. The biggest thing is he's a free agent after this year or next year.
I think it's after this year. I'd have to go back and double check his contract.
Right. But it's pretty soon. So you either got to know it's just for this year, which why would you trade away any capital for just this year? You would have to have that agreement before you make the trade to sign him.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Chiefs and you could give up a 5th or a 6th, well, of course you would do it if you really wanted to, just in hopes of getting back to another Super Bowl. But if you're going to give up potentially a 3rd or, say a 4th, it depends on the teams and their cap space. A lot of people are bringing up the Bills looking to trade for a bunch of players. Well, as far as I know, the Bills don't have a ton of cap space right now. In fact, one team that just opened up cap space is the Giants, and the Giants are another team rumored to go after looking for another receiver. They've had some injuries there. So if the Giants can win, they're at Denver. That's going to be a tough one for the Giants, actually.
Yep.
But if they pull the upset there somehow, the Giants may pull the trigger on a receiver somewhere. But obviously with Daboll and Shane being on the hot seat, you got to think the owner's got to approve it, because he probably knows those guys are going to make a desperate move potentially if they need to, and I'm sure him and his team they're going to really look at any potential trades that those two are trying to make.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the owner, I obviously should check off every trade, but you're 100% right there. You're not guaranteed to come back. They're trying to save their job, but you can't mortgage your future as a organization just because 2 guys are trying to save their job. So you're 100% right there.
Yeah, they've I'm sure Mara's going to be he's going to be reviewing that, or he's got a team of people that are. And then on to the next topic. Your Bears now have won 3 in a row. The penalties are still an issue for the Bears, and that's why I didn't have them ranked much higher. That the rankings I sent you, which we'll go over here in a bit. But they're on the right track. We talked about after their first win, their second. Now they got 3 in a row. I think their next game is it at the Ravens?
Yes.
Or no, they got the Saints this week. Then
Saints, then the Ravens. Yeah, so Lamar will probably be back for the Bears game.
Yeah, that's not
good.
that's right. So they really need to get this one. The Saints are kind of a tough team. They're They're a little bit better at home. Spencer Rattler's actually not turning the ball over really much at all. So I think this might be a little bit of a tough game, emotional win for the Bears to kind of get payback of what happened last year at Washington with the Hail Mary. I think it was close to the same time in the season as last year, give or take, pretty close. So you wonder if the Bears might start to have a little bit of an emotional letdown, winning 3 in a row. But this is now the way the Bears are trending. This is you got to get this win at home versus Saints.
Yep. Yeah, and the Saints' record is not good, but they're someone they're going to beat somebody because you said it. Spencer Rattler's he's doing pretty good. They just don't have a lot of talent, but they're doing things the right way per se, and that will win you a football game. It's not going to win you a lot, but it will win you a football game. I just hope it's not this week against the Bears. It was bittersweet. The Bears needed that win. Jalen Daniels fumbling it. I was a little bit nervous. I mean, I think they were kind of content on kicking a 50-yard field goal with Jake Booty, who is a really good kicker. People forget he was a 3rd-round draft pick. So, and he kicked big kicks, good kick. He just somehow has lost it. But then, they did that toss to the right side there and got like 15 yards. So it was a much more manageable kick. But I was worried when they were going to kick the 50-yarder to win it. I'm like, that's a little far. Especially the weather wasn't great. I mean, if the weather's, good, then a 50-yarder is fine. But just snaps and holds in wind and weather just aren't a guarantee.
Yeah, those extra yards paid off. And for Moody, kickers are like golfers. Anybody, even you or me as a golfer, you could be hitting your driver perfect or putting great, and then the next round or even the next hole you lose it, and then it's gone for a while. It's kicking's such a middle game. Kind of like golf is. So it's good to see Moody back. Harbaugh used to say death, taxes, and Jake Moody. So he's a really talented kicker. Good for the Bears. We talked about it before the season. It wasn't so much about the record, not that the record didn't matter, but it's continuously improvement out of Caleb Williams, which we are seeing. He's taking less sacks. His accuracy is still off a little bit. Got to get that cleaned up, but we are seeing improvement since week 1. Really, my biggest issue with the Bears right now, what they got to get cleaned up is the penalties. And if they can get that cleaned up, which you would expect as the season goes on, they probably should, because Ben Johnson looks like a capable coach. We'll see if he's really good or great as time goes on, but he's definitely made improvements for the Bears. There's no doubt about it.
Well, he's way better than Aaron Glenn with the Jets. So at least they hired the right guy from the Lions.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's go your power rankings. If you want to go through all 32, you can. If you just want to do about the top 10, 15, that's fine. I'll get a graphic either later tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, let me see if I got that pulled up. We're not going to go through all of them, of course. Right. I'll just list. I'll go through the top 10, and then we'll talk about 32. But at number 10, I got the Lions. Number 9, I got the Green Bay Packers. I've seen people have them all the way to 2 or 3. I think the Packers are the most overrated NFC team right now. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Eagles at 8. Seahawks at 7. Broncos at 6. This probably is a little bit high, but I like the way their schedule is going to break. Patriots at 5. Indianapolis Colts at 4. The Rams at number 3, who could, I think, just about be undefeated. A few breaks here and there. This one, some people are going to hate this, but I think they're back. I got the Chiefs at 2, and I got the Bucks at 1.
Yeah. It's Tampa Bay is just under the radar. Baker Mayfield under the radar. They just win football games, and they're going to continue to win. They're going to win their division again, and they're going to get a home playoff game, and so obviously probably be a favorite to win that one. And then you got a chance. That's all you can do.
Yeah, and I'll do this real quick. I'll list maybe a concern for each of these top 10 teams. And I'll kind of do it rapid fire. We'll start with the Bucks. Injuries, and Baker Mayfield has the most turnover-worthy throws of the NFL. Take that for what you want to. The Chiefs, we've talked about the lack of running game. Yep. Their bigger concern right now is Harrison Butker's missing kicks just about every week. In a big-time game or a playoff game, special teams can come back to haunt you. Number 3, the Rams, same thing. They've had special teams errors all season. and then Williams with the fumble ball security. The Colts, inexperience in big games, and does Daniel Jones turn back into a pumpkin?
Yep.
Number 5, the Patriots, young quarterback, young offense. Are they going to start to get overconfident now, winning a few big ones? We'll see with that. The Broncos, only one question. We talked about it before the season. Bo Nix is very up and down this year.
Yep.
Seahawks are better on the road than at home, which is strange. They've won like 10 straight games under Mike McDonald. And, Seattle's supposed to be one of the toughest places to play historically, but they do better on the road than at home. I don't know why. Also, Kenneth Walker, the running back, probably spins into more lost yardage than any back in the league. If you watch Seahawks, you'll know what I'm talking about there. The Eagles, offensive worries. Saquon's not running the ball well. The passing game is struggling. You wonder if this is like 2 years ago, when they hired the wrong offensive coordinator. And then the last few, Packers, youngest team in the NFL. Again, I think they could be right there at the end of the season, but they started 2-0. They looked red hot. They have players talking about going undefeated and going to the Super Bowl. And since then, they just haven't looked the same. So they're a young team that I expect to get better, but I can't put them anywhere near my top 5 right now. The Lions, their biggest concern is they're great from a lead, but when they get down, they have real problems coming back from a deficit. Something changes with their offense. If they get down 10 points or 14 points, they almost start to panic. They don't stick to the running game. So the Lions' biggest weakness is, can they play from a deficit in a big game? And then one team that I had listed just outside the top 10 is the Bills. Bills got a lot of issues. Defensively, they can't stop anybody. The receivers aren't getting open, and James Cook isn't running the ball as well. And Josh Allen is starting to get back to turning the ball over more, which that's probably because he feels like he has to turn into Superman again.
Yeah, if he's not Superman, they're just a mediocre team. Now, obviously, he's Superman, and when he plays like Superman, they can beat anybody, just because he's as good as there is in the league. But if he's not Superman, they aren't necessarily that good.
Yeah, now they're going to get some players back on defense from injuries, so you hope that would help. Again, I've talked about their cap space. They can move some stuff around. I'm sure they went to Josh Allen and said, hey, can we push $5 million or $8 million down the road to, whatever year? I'm sure he would do that, because there's still an opening for them to get the number 1 seed. And if this playoffs does start without Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson not in the playoffs, and the Bills don't get to a Super Bowl, I mean, that's the fans are going to be super upset, and I don't blame them. This is the year that the Bills need to get over the hump. And right now, they're a playoff team, but they've just, that Ravens win we thought was going to really take them to the next level. Well, the Ravens haven't looked as good since. We all know their problems on defense. Yeah, the Bills look like a borderline top 10 team right now. I think they'll get better as the season goes on when you have a player like Josh Allen and the experience that they do and the coaching staff, but they're just a little bit off right now.
And then, kind of the one of the big storylines of the week, the Titans fire their GM and coach, and then Mike Vrabel walks in with, as you ranked them, number 5 Patriots, get them going in the right direction. And that's, if you're a Titans fan, you just have to be so frustrated. And everybody knew when they fired him, he isn't a bad coach. He just didn't have the players for whatever reason. But that just has to be so frustrating when you had that guy and he goes to another team that was bad and turned them around immediately. I mean, if you're just a Titans fan, you just got to be shaking your head. What the heck?
Yeah, and if you're someone like me who said that I liked betting the Titans over 5.5 wins preseason, that's not looking as good. You saw that Cam Ward came out with those comments. I don't like that at all out of a rookie quarterback. That's a little bit discouraging. I'm not real too impressed with that. I thought they'd be a little bit better. That's one I'm probably going to lose that one. Now my Baker Mayfield preseason 25-1 MVP is looking all right. He's either the front runner or second place. So that one's looking okay. But yeah, back to Vrabel coming back to town. I'm still in Taylor's pick'em pool. There's 28 of us left. I've got two entries. I'm thinking about the Titans, or excuse me, I'm thinking about the Patriots for one of them. But the new interim coach bump scares me. But everything scares you in a pick'em pool, though, now.
Yeah. So you still have 2 of the 28?
I got 2 of the 28. So
is Zach still alive?
Yeah, Zach's still alive. Taylor's got one still alive, and then a handful of others.
Right. I'm out, so I don't follow it. And then last on your list, Tua's comments. Kind of was throwing his teammates, just players only meeting. No one was coming. He walked it back. I didn't hear his comments today where he walked it back, but I'm guessing what he said was 100% correct. He probably just shouldn't have said it in public.
Yeah, typically I don't like that either. Quarterback, you're supposed to fall on the sword in press conferences.
Yeah.
We talked about that for many years on here. And Tua seems like a smart guy. Everybody's crushing him, former coaches and players. They're probably right. What I'm wondering, though, is 6 months from now, a year from now, are we going to get some story behind the scenes of what was going on in Miami?
Oh, yeah.
And was he maybe right in doing it? Was he trying to get people to come in on time, have players-only meetings, and he wasn't getting any help from the coaches or the players? But there was also a former player that said Tua showed up late one time to a meeting. So I don't know who to believe. Before the season, I talked about the Dolphins and the Colts both had issues last year, reportedly, of players not showing up on time to meetings. Well, the Colts obviously got it corrected, and the Dolphins didn't. So one coach is going to save his job. One is just waiting to get fired.
Yeah, which, I'm going to use the Arizona coach, college Arizona coach, as an example. Last year, he kind of felt like it wasn't necessarily his team. Players held over from the previous staff where they were good. Their coach left to go to Washington. Most of the players left, so he brought in a bunch of guys, but the ones that stayed behind, he just kind of let them do their thing. And obviously they were bad last year. Well, this year, not an option. We're doing it my way or no way, and they're much better. They're not a great team, but they're better. And just like the Colts this year, last year how he did it didn't work. It wasn't the way to do it. He's doing it a different way, and it's working. And obviously Daniel Jones, the quarterbacks that get under, O'Connor and Shanahan, even if they're not the starter, even if they're not playing every day, I think they learn how to be a pro. That's what Sam Darnold said that he learned from Brock Purdy and Shanahan. He learned how to be a pro. He wasn't taught how to be a pro in the Jets organization and Carolina's organization. And that's why the Jets have been this way for 25 years. You just cannot be successful in that organization, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Bears. Caleb Williams came out and said that he couldn't get any of the coaches to, help him watch film or whatever the exact comment was. So, yeah, there's some bad coaches in the NFL. There's some guys that get jobs that probably shouldn't. It's because of who they know, not what they know. We talked about that before. That works in college and NFL. So, yeah, these quarterbacks, reclamation projects, Baker, Sam Darnold, Geno had it in Seattle. It's not working so well in Vegas with the Raiders right now.
Right.
But, Daniel Jones has revitalized his career. We talked about Mac Jones. He had a little bit of a rough week, but they're so banged up right now. It's not even funny. I think they had 25 players that Shanahan went through today in a press conference, I thought I read. So, but the overall point, though, getting you get a quarterback with some talent with the right coach, and it brings out the best of them. And we're starting to see that basically every year now in the NFL, where the quarterback gets forgotten about, gets in the right situation, gets an opportunity, and they flourish.
It's almost like, well, this was the third or fourth time that the quarterback picked first, the number one overall pick, their coach didn't even make it through the year. Eberflus last year with Williams, Callahan here, with Cam Ward. You almost need to start fresh. You need to fire your coach and go draft your guy instead of trying to hang on for one more year. Because even Peyton Manning was awful his first year, and he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Most quarterbacks their first year are not good. They're not Brock Purdy. But Brock Purdy wasn't the number one pick. He was on a team that was already good. Last pick of the draft. And he ended up he was third string. And just by, unfortunate injuries, it worked out for him.
Yeah, that's the trouble with Jackson Dart there in New York. If they finish 6-11 or 7-10, but he looks pretty good, and Dable gets fired, now you're bringing in another coach, and you better hope that you get the right one. So yeah, it's really tough when you have a coach that's on the hot seat that takes a quarterback. The right coach makes all the difference in the NFL. There's enough proof over it over the last 5 years, call it, or whatever it's been.
Right, and Dable's living off of being Josh Allen's coordinator. Well, Josh Allen's better than most people. Now he has some. He'll make any. I mean, I could go be the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach for Josh Allen, and I'd look better than I am. I promise you.
Yeah, he's going to make enough plays on his own to at least make you look capable. So yeah, it's a coaching league still. The NFL is, and there's still a lot of the season to go, but we're starting to get the picture painted a little bit better. Some underrated teams I'd pay attention to. One would be a team that nobody really pays attention to at all, including myself, is Carolina. They're sitting there at 3-3. There was a few people that liked them coming in this season. I was like, why? I don't watch the Panthers ever, so I didn't really have a strong opinion on Carolina other than Bryce Young's a really small quarterback, but they are 3-3. Maybe they can go on a bit of a run, though that division looks a lot better than people probably expected. Even the Saints at their record is a tough out. The AFC, maybe the Texans are going to start to get things turned around. The only problem is they're at Seattle this week. That's going to be a tough game, even though Seattle right now is better on the road. Still, the Texans going up there against that defense is going to be a tough one. If the Texans can win at Seattle this week, maybe look for the Texans to maybe start going on a little bit of a roll in the AFC.
Yeah, they were the real disappointing first 2-3 weeks of the season because I did think they were better, and there's a whole bunch of Cyclones on that team.
Yeah, their offensive line was a concern. I probably should have saw that coming. I didn't think it was going to be this bad early in the season for the Texans, but we'll see what happens. I think they're the Sunday or Monday night game up there in Seattle. If they can get that one, that'd be a big one for them. But the picture's starting to paint itself a little bit. Good news for your Bears is looks like you got the right coach, and you've definitely got a starting quarterback in Caleb Williams.
Yeah, he's good enough. There's some plays he makes that not very many people in the league can make, just athletically, and that's why he was number 1 draft pick. I mean, he has a cannon for an arm, and he's pretty athletic. He can move around enough.
Yeah, the talent's there. He can do some things that very few guys in the NFL can do, and if he just gets a little bit better each week, the rest of the season should be a lot of fun, and potentially next season could be a really big one for the Bears.
Yep. All right, Trev. We'll see you in a few weeks. Next week either I'll go by myself or I'll get someone in. But enjoy your time. And we'll talk in a few weeks here.
Yeah, next week going to be in San Diego with the family. Got my nephew graduating from the Marines. He survived the 54-hour Crucible Marines test that they keep you up for 54 straight hours and run you and all that type of stuff that I wouldn't want to do. So
he's tougher than you and me, Trev. I promise you that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So that'll be good. And then you'll have to see if you can get Zach or someone on here the next couple of weeks. I'll be back early November.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Trev. We'll talk later.
All righty. Have a good one.